Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show right here on Clemson Football at the Voice of College Football. Thank you so much for joining me. I am, as always, your host, Tiger Paul Craven. Jordan Bowman will be joining us momentarily. We got a ton to talk about in tonight's show. We got some injury updates for you guys. We got some fall camp intel. We have some recruiting updates for you guys. And then obviously we'll round that out with our BYOG or sales segment. And then on to the comment sections, let you guys drive the show after that, as we always do. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really do appreciate it. But before we get into tonight's show, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. We just crossed over 5,000 subscribers not too long ago, and we're still looking to grow the channel and bring more people in, especially as college football is starting to ramp up. A lot of people that take a break from college football are starting to come back. So invite those people to come along and join me and Jordan here for the All In Show here every Friday. And then, as you guys know, as the season goes along, we will break down. We will have a live reaction to every single Clemson game this season right here on the channel as well. So bring your friends, bring your family, bring your college football, all the college football people alike. And with all of that said, and without further ado, let me bring on my co-host, Jordan Bowman. Jordan, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing good. It feels good to finally kind of be back in a kind of a normal show a little bit. I know you're still a little sick, but we're we're actually, both in our normal spots, and
Yeah.
and we're still not on time, but we're working on that.
We'll get there eventually, maybe one
We
day.
will get there eventually, but no, seriously, glad to be back. There is a lot to talk about. A lot has happened in just this week from a fall camp perspective. We've got some, like, as you mentioned, we've got some intel to talk about, some injuries. Nothing serious, thankfully, so far, but just some guys in limited action right now. And we've got to talk about a little bit of recruiting. We got a commitment last week, and of course, there was another development on the wide receiver front that wasn't so favorable, and we didn't really get a chance to talk about it. So I just kind of wanted to address it, from last week. So yeah, should be a good show. And of course, we got BYOG or sell. My favorite segment, I guess. I'm a little biased, but
it's all good. It's a good segment. But yeah, man, I couldn't agree more. It's good to be back. I am still a little under the weather, guys. So I'll still be muting my mic and coughing a bit. I got my hot tea that my wife made me over here to keep my throat good for the show. So should be good to go. We'll power through it regardless. But ton going on in Clemson, man. Ton going on in Tiger Town. Fall camp is obviously in full swing, Jordan. We got a big scrimmage happening tomorrow in the Valley. That's going to be a big thing. They've been in Jervy Meadows for the past couple of days, getting a little nasty over there, as Dabo likes to do from time to time in fall camp. Kind of like to take them out of their sheltered, if you will, environment of all the Clemson's state-of-the-art facilities there, and put them over there in the hole where they get to sweat and just be hot and be miserable and play old school football for a little bit. Obviously had the Lake Day. I think yesterday, was that yesterday? They had the Lake Day?
I believe so.
Yeah, I believe it was yesterday they had the Lake Day. So something they always do in fall camp as well. So tons of news and tons of stuff to talk about, and we'll get into it all. But before we get into that, let's go and give a shout out to our comment section real quick. We got 12 people already here in the live chat. Thank you so much for being here. As you guys know, at the end of this show, me and Jordan will turn it over to you guys, and you guys get to ask all your questions and drive the show from there. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for that part of the show. We got Jackson Johnson in here. As always, our moderator in here, always plugging the things that need to be plugged for the Voice of College Football and Mark Rogers and all the stuff we got going on. Continue to try to support the channel as a whole, guys. We got the Amazon link in the link of this description. You got Mark Rogers Discord. Tons of options available there. Venmo, Cash App, all that kind of stuff that you can support the channel directly. And then the South New Hampshire University as well. If you're interested in doing any of this sports commentating stuff on a more professional level, obviously they have the degree pass free to use there, as we've played those videos in the past. So make sure you're supporting the channel, checking out the other team channels, and of course the flagship channel, the Voice of College Football, Mark Rogers channel. So excuse me, guys. Thank you all for that. John Sarian's in here. Thank you so much, buddy. Jay's in here. And that's all we got in the comment section so far. So thank you guys all for being in here. Really do appreciate that. Jordan, how was your week, man?
It was something. I've been kind of on pins and needles all week. I mean, checking my phone, for updates and stuff. Whatever subscription, website I could get my hands on and just kind of get some idea of what's going on in Tiger Town as far as fall camp. And that's really taken up, other than work, that's taken up a lot of my time, because I give an unhealthy amount of attention to this program, but yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff to kind of take in. Some really positive stuff coming out today, that I think, if you haven't seen it already, will get you a little bit excited about the potential of this team this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Some good interviews from some of our favorite Tiger defenders today that we got to see and hear about and hear kind of their perspective on what's going on with the team thus far and what their thoughts are for the upcoming season and all that kind of stuff. So there's really a ton to get into. So I guess let's just go ahead and dive into it, Jordan. And, one of the big things that you always worry about come this type of season or this time of the season when you're preparing, especially for a big game like Georgia coming up, you're trying to be physical. You're trying to get ready for a really big college football season, and you have to kind of fight that injury bug, right? Now, this is something that the Clemson Tigers have been well versed in, especially in these past 3 years, where our program's kind of taken a step back, if you will, from the prominence that we were at with the 6 college football playoff runs and all that kind of stuff. We really have been bitten by the injury bug quite a bit these past 3 seasons, mainly on the receiver part of the field. So let's get a quick fall camp injury update, if you will, Jordan. Who we got in green jerseys? I know if I do remember correctly, we only started fall camp with 2 green jerseys. Nobody in yellow, just 2 guys in green. Green obviously means that they are very close to working back to full speed. Yellow, they're a little bit more limited, so on and so forth, right? So do we have anybody in yellow jerseys? Because that wouldn't be a good thing. And then 2, how many people do we have in green jerseys right now? And what are they looking like? And who are those individuals?
Yeah, so the new green jerseys kind of showed themselves during the Wednesday portion of their Derby Meadows, their yearly Derby Meadows. I don't want to say retreat because it's right there, but that it's kind of a camp within itself. As Cole Turner was one of the guys that popped up in green. He was, he's been recovering from shoulder surgery and he is working his way back, and he was full go just this past week. And I think during the Wednesday scrimmage he was seen in a green jersey, so that was surprising a little bit. Still not clear what he's dealing with. But Jake Brittingstool and Cade Denhoff as well were in green jerseys. So, something to monitor there. Not anything serious, as we've talked about. It's definitely it's not yellow, where we're like, okay, now we have to have a conversation. Nothing serious so far, and I think that's the good thing. I mean, you're going to have guys that get banged up during camp from here to here, but things on the injury front still seem to be relatively mild, knocking on wood, if you can hear that. So that's a good thing. I mentioned Cade Denhoff and Jake Brittingstool. So those were the new guys, and we'll kind of see what kind of develops. They had yes, Jaden Lucas is still in green as well.
So we got Lucas, Burley, Denhoff, and Brittingstool.
Yes.
4 guys in green jerseys.
Correct.
Which, to this point in camp, not too terribly bad, right? You mentioned that they are only in green jerseys. We still don't have any players in yellow jerseys, which is probably something that would be a little bit more long-term, a little bit more physically limiting for those players. So obviously, some of these green jerseys could just be precautionary. Maybe they tweak something a little bit. Maybe they're, feeling a little bit more muscle soreness than maybe the trainers would like. So they're pulling back, right? Especially with a guy like Brittingstool. You would think a guy like that, we've heard the reports of him coming in from summer workouts. I mean, he just looks different, right? And you can tell by his weigh-in, his body is in a very different place than it was this time last year, which is really exciting as a Clemson fan. But sometimes when you get on the field with that new added weight, sometimes things can, get a little sore, get a little off balanced, and, the trainer's got to work through those things. So hopefully it's something very easy like that and nothing big to worry about. No key real injuries. This is always the time where you hear of players, having some sort of catastrophic injury, and we've avoided that to this point. Again, Jordan, knock on wood. Let's keep that going.
Especially with the scrimmage that's coming up tomorrow. Well, let's hope for good health.
Ron Birkin says, what was Brenning Stool's weight? He was up in the 240 range, like 243, I think he was.
Yeah.
Somewhere
he
in there.
I believe he played at 230 last year, something like that.
So he put on about 10, 15 pounds over the off season, which is really good for him. It's really good for his frame. He can definitely handle it with the size frame that he has. No worries there with the weight that he put on. That was just a thought that popped in my mind. Sometimes when you put on, more muscle mass, things get a little weird there sometimes. But hopefully we're working through all those injury situations. Nothing big to report yet. Receivers still looking pretty healthy. As far as we can tell now, nobody
other than Cole Turner. Yeah.
Cole Turner. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Cole Turner. Just, I don't know. I hate it because it just seems like, I don't want to say like I hear Cole Turner's in a green jersey. It's like, oh yeah, of course he is. But that's kind of like, that's kind of what you feel when you hear that name and it's, back in some sort of injury capacity. But again, hopefully it's nothing too.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Like it just, and I think it's frustrating with me, like with Cole Turner, because he's a guy that definitely needs the reps. I mean, he is a junior now, but again, he came into Clemson having not really played the receiver position, and he's been learning.
Right.
And obviously missing a ton, basically all of last year. Like you wanted him to be able to have a healthy fall camp in order to factor more into this wide receiver rotation. We'll see. Again, it's a green jersey, so it means that it's not, they think he'll be back pretty soon, but he's a guy like you want to be able to get, those reps in. He's the fastest player on the team, according to anybody you ask, which is like, sometimes it kind of gives more credence to it because, sometimes, they'll have, they'll ask those questions, like for anybody's team, they'll ask those questions, like who's the fastest on the team. And like, sometimes you'll get different answers, but it's like Cole Turner is unanimously like, it's like when you ask, it's like, who's the fastest player on the team? Cole. No hesitation either.
No hesitation, yeah.
When you ask the offensive players and the defensive players. So it's like, I mean, he's a guy you want to be able to get on the field if possible. Because I do think he has some utility in this offense, especially as a deep threat. So I want to see him get back because I mean he needs it for his development. He does. It's good that he had the in a way it's good, with how last season went because he did get the red shirt, so that should help a little bit. But you still want him to get those reps.
It definitely still stunts the growth, as a guy that hasn't played a ton at the position. Not being out on the field, not getting those reps, it definitely affects you. You can only do so many mental reps. Eventually you just got to get out there and do it, So, hopefully he's working back to a little bit better. Hopefully it's nothing serious, maybe just tweak something. Or again, these green jerseys could be precautionary. They're not going to tell us really what's going on. I know, for instance, Vic Burley, he's been in a green jersey since camp started, right? I read some reports early on in camp. He was grabbing at his knee. Maybe that has something to do with his green jersey. I'm not really sure. And again, they're not really going to tell us what's going on with these guys, but he has been in a green jersey since the beginning of fall camp. So
and you mentioned Vic, and that's another guy. It's like you hate to hear that because it's like, man, you want him to get those reps because he's already behind because he missed all of last season, but he's going to be so like the talent is obvious and from anybody that talks about him, and you just want him with the same thing, but honestly in a bigger degree than Cole because Vic is just he came in like physically ready to play. Like he could have gotten on the field last year if he didn't tear his ACL.
And the coaches made it very known last year that he was going to play had he not been injured. So.
Yeah, and so he's a guy. He's like you want to see him get out there on the field, but I think the good thing is you have a boatload of depth at defensive tackle, and it's not the end of the world if he doesn't, work his way back super quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the one position where you can afford, albeit as crazy as that sounds, you can afford to, almost lose a year of a guy like Vic Burley.
Right, and and the crazy thing is you lost 2 guys to the NFL draft.
Right, and you
season,
lost
and
2
you
guys
still
out of
have
that room to the NFL draft, but you still got DeMonte Capehart and Peyton Page and Trey Williams. The Filing Green I mean, the list just goes on in that room, and it's absolutely insane. But pretty good, I think, from an injury standpoint. I think as a Clemson Tiger right now, you can sit back at this point in fall camp. Obviously, we got the big scrimmage happening in the Valley tomorrow, so hopefully that goes off without a hitch. Hopefully, both sides of the ball play well. You don't really want one side dominating one or the other because usually that means a bad thing for the other side, right? So that's the unfortunate part of scrimmaging yourself. If one side really wins the day, that means one part of your team didn't play well. That's just par for the course when it comes to fall camp and things like that. But looking forward to hearing some of the news coming out of the spring practice, or excuse me, the big scrimmage tomorrow in the Valley. See where we're at to this point in time of camp. See who's kind of pulling themselves away and who's kind of solidifying themselves in a little bit more guaranteed role. So not too terribly bad news as far as the injury update. I think as best as we could.
Much better than last year. Right now.
Better than last year. At this point last year, I don't even know how many people we had in multicolored jerseys. They weren't just green jerseys. We had a bunch of people in yellow and all sorts of stuff. So only 4 guys in green jerseys to this point in fall camp that we know of so far. So hopefully that number reduces and we don't get anybody hurt in any serious way as camp goes on. So let's hope for that for sure. Excuse me. Sorry. All right, guys, we got 26 people in the live chat right now. Thank you guys so much for showing up. Hit that like button while you're in here. Hit that like button, hit that like button, hit that like button. Really helps us out on these live videos. Consider subscribing to the channel. Me and Jordan do the All In Show right here every Friday at 5:30 p.m. At the end of the show, we always turn it over to the comment section. So make sure you're sticking around for that to get your questions and comments responded to and answered to during the live chat. We also have the super chat feature available for you guys. If you want to support what me and Jordan do here on the All In Show, please, by all means, hit that super chat feature. One, it'll guarantee that your question or comment gets read and responded to on the live show. And then 2, it obviously supports what me and Jordan do here. Also support the Voice of College Football and all the channels that they have. Most importantly, the mother channel, Voice of College Football, Mark Rogers. And utilize that Amazon link if you guys are not already. If you shop on Amazon, go in the description of this video, copy and paste that Amazon link, and that's a good way to support the channel as well. But thank you guys all for being here. Let's go ahead and get into the next segment of the day, and we are going to get into the fall camp intel, right? Moving right along into fall camp. We talked about the injury updates, Jordan. We talked about the guys that are a bit limited right now, but let's talk about some of the noise and some of the intel and just some of the little pieces that are starting to trickle out from fall camp via media members, via different interviews with guys. And go ahead and hit a couple things this week that have stood out from you, just that you've either read or heard in an interview that really stood out with you, that's kind of made you kind of think a little bit differently about this team heading into the 2024 season.
Yeah, so I mean, I want to start with this, and I think it's something that should be established and said because it's a reality. Everything I've gathered at this point, the defense is ahead of the offense. I don't think that should be any surprise to anybody, and it's not indicative of anything necessarily for Clemson's offense this year. I mean, we know how talented this defense is, but also, that's just the standard, basically, anywhere. Like at this point in fall camp, you're always going to have your defense, pretty much always going to have your defense ahead of your offense. The times you don't actually the times you probably are you might want to be concerned. It's not universal. It's not like it's not like a law or anything like that. But that tends to be how these things go, especially in fall camp. And we're only a weekend, so. But you've heard a lot of really good things from the offense as far as kind of the formations that they've been using, how Cade has looked. A lot of positive things about Cade. The competition on the line of scrimmage from the offensive line, it's been apparently it's been a marked improvement over last year. There's a lot more functional competition and a lot more functional depth on the offensive line than you had last year. So that was exciting to hear. And that was kind of the attitude we got to kind of get some insight on that on some interviews today after their practice earlier this afternoon from Khalil Barnes and Avion Terrell, and they talked about kind of the progress that the offense has made and kind of what Garrett Riley especially has done differently this year. And they mentioned how Garrett was throwing a lot more stuff at them. The route combinations were a lot different. I believe it was Khalil Barnes that said, a lot of what they did last year, there was a lot of pick routes and underneath stuff. Wasn't a whole lot of variation. And this year it's just been a lot different, and the defense has been on their toes. Tyler Venables talked about it as well. Especially talking about Cade, and he said, I get upset when they score on us, but then, in the back of my mind, it's like, well, it's also a really good thing too. So I think that, there's been a lot of positive from the offensive side of things, as far as the offensive line, as far as Cade, and the play calling and kind of, philosophy offensively has been tweaked a little bit. And I think Garrett Riley has I think he kind of has a better feel with what he has this year, and I think he likes what he has a lot better this year. And he's definitely I think they're in a position to be a little bit more dynamic offensively, and that's because that's what Garrett Riley's offense wants to be. It's throw a lot of formations at you. It's not overly complicated, but you can do a lot of the same thing from different formations and make it hard on the defense because it gives them so many looks. That's what you want. And especially when you can incorporate the tempo and the quarterback run game, it's a really, really tough offense to stop. And we saw, when it was at its best at TCU, that's what they're going for. And they did some aspects of that well. They ran a ton of plays, but they weren't overly explosive. In fact, they were very not explosive. One of the worst offenses in terms of explosive play rate. It might be the worst when you consider the volume of plays. So, maybe not worse than Iowa, but you were a little, you were bordering that territory of lack of explosiveness. You were just a lot more efficient than they were. So, now it's about, getting it to that point where everybody is comfortable. The camaraderie with Cade and the receivers has gotten a lot of praise as well. And that's ultimately what's going to, be the difference in whether or not this offense gels into what we hope and think it can be with the potential and the weapons that I think will be at their disposal this year.
Yeah, look, I think a lot of what you said makes sense, and it should give some Clemson fans some cautious optimism. Like we've stated all offseason, me and you are going to fully 100% hang out in this kind of cautious, optimistic realm of thinking about Clemson football, at least from the offensive side of the ball and the offensive side of, our perspective on what the team is going to be in 2024. And some of the big things that I think stood out to me with, listening to interviews and reading articles and just kind of digesting the stuff coming out of fall camp is, Cade and the steps that he's taken to become a leader on the team. I think that's very important, and I think it's becoming more evident to me, the evolution that he's made as a leader on the team, the more I hear individuals talk about Cade, not just on the offensive side of the ball, but you hear the guys on the defensive side of the ball echoing it. And they talk about one key point in his leadership that I think is important, and something new that he's added to his game this year, and that's being that vocal leader. That's being that guy that's out in front of the offense, the guy that's talking, the guy that's speaking, the guy that's commanding the room, commanding the locker room, if you will. And I think that's just it's a very underrated thing, and it's not always a natural thing for every single quarterback, but it's kind of a natural thing at the quarterback position for the rest of the team to want their quarterback to be that guy, right? And I think it's become very evident this offseason that Cade has tried to become that more vocal leader. I think he's a little more comfortable now being a junior, now being an upperclassman, now having a little bit more skin in the game, a little bit seniority in the program. He feels a lot more comfortable doing that. And you can tell that that the guys are responding to it. You can tell that they like it. They like that their quarterback is out there up front talking and being that vocal leader that they can look to and be like, all right, that's our guy, right? I mean, even when he's struggling, hey, that's our guy, right? Go pick him up, right? So I think that's one of the big encouraging things for me that I'm hearing the most consistently coming out of fall camp. Yeah, you're going to hear, Cade's making plays and he's doing this, and, the offense is scheming a little bit better. But those intangible things, those leadership qualities, I think are really starting to kind of change my perspective on some changes that Cade may have made this offseason. And I hope it translates onto the field, because that's where it matters, right? We can hear all this stuff coming out of fall camp, and it all sounds great. And it's all, rainbows and sunshine, and, everything's great and kumbaya. But at the end of the day, on August 31st, we got to kick the ball off against Georgia, which is probably the best team in the country. And they're going to be looking to take our heads off, right? So, but I think it's important that he's taken that step. Another thing is the closeness of the team overall. I think since I'm just touching on intangible type things, not necessarily direct on the field things that we're hearing, but just intangibles. You've heard so many player interviews this year, more so than in the past, I think, about how close this team is and how much of a concerted effort they've made to become a close and find out each other. You've heard a lot of the players talk about it, and I'm assuming it's a message that Dabo is pushing in the locker room, because he likes to do this. You hear a lot of the players talking about the why, right? What's their why, right? What's the guy to their left and to their right? What's their why, right? Figuring out each and every person's why, of why they do that, why they show up, why do they play football, why do they care so much, why does it mean so much, right? And I think that is kind of showing a unique personality that this team has taken on, and they're kind of, I don't know, to me it kind of looks like they're circling the wagons, right? And they're becoming a very internal team. And I think that's important, especially with all the noise that has been surrounding the Clemson program, especially the past 3 seasons, especially after last season, after you dip below that 10-win mark for the first time in 12 seasons. Your program is steady regressing. You can just see the internals of this program they're kind of circling their wagons, and they're about to, face it all outwards and be like us against the world. And I think that could go a long way, right? Obviously, Dabo Swinney does some of his best work and pulls some of the best strings when he's the underdog and he's the guy that, everybody's doubting and everybody's saying, oh, he can't do that. He can't do this. Clemson can't do that. Clemson can't do this. Dabo Swinney's loving it. But that's some of the stuff that I'm hearing coming out of fall camp. And then, some of the stuff that you were talking about, Khalil Barnes and A.J. Terrell and Shelton Lewis and
wrong Terrell brother.
Oh, sorry, Avion Terrell. Excuse me, Avion Terrell. I wish
we'll
we had
about AJ Terrell. We'll talk about it later.
I'll take both of them. They can be on islands all out there, right? But Avion Terrell, baby Terrell out there.
I don't know if he would appreciate that.
What's that?
I said I don't know if he would appreciate the baby Terrell.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Avion. If you see this, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that at all. I did not mean that. Excuse me. But and then hearing Tyler Venables talk today, bro, that dude, he sounds like Brent Venables Oh my God.
He does.
Did you watch his interview?
He sounds
like
exactly
if you close your eyes and don't look at the screen, you swear to God, it's like Brent Venables talking. Like just some of the things that he says and how he says it, it sounds just like Brent Venables. It's so funny. But just hearing those guys talk and hearing about how they're being challenged by some of these young wide receivers, and not just the young guys, but some of the older guys in the room, Antonio Williams out there challenging people, making people better, right? I think it's good to hear that the offense is showing a lot of different looks, that the offense is challenging the defense in a way that maybe they weren't able to last season because of the install and what got installed and what didn't get installed, and what was able to be digested and what wasn't. So a lot of interesting stuff coming out of fall camp for sure.
Yeah, man, and you hit on it. I mean, I think just the you talked about the camaraderie and the chemistry that they've been building up in this offseason. I mean, we've talked about it. I mean, especially from the Cade angle. I mean, the lack of attrition on offense should tell you a lot. I mean, a lot of guys could have transferred last year that didn't. And I think that's just a testament, especially from the receiver standpoint. You lost one receiver, and I was not I was like, after last year, there were a few guys that we were kind of had on our watch list. I was like, okay, I don't know if they are going to be in it for the long run or not, but the fact that they stuck it out, I think, does point to that belief in Cade and what he can bring to the table. And the stuff you've heard from fall camp so far has been encouraging. So, again, cautious optimism, but you're hearing the things that you want to hear, and that's really all you can ask for. Because I definitely wouldn't want to be hearing the opposite. Man, Cade is threw 3 picks in the scrimmage the other day, or Cade, he still looks lost out there. He still looks like the game's moving too fast. Like I haven't heard anything from not like from people that would have a reason to lie about that kind of stuff. People who are their job is to cover that kind of stuff.
And you also sometimes reporters will ask guys about because Cade, he's a hot button topic, right? They're going to ask every freaking player about Cade. No matter who it is, whoever walks in front of the media, they're going to get a Cade question, right? They're probably going to get a Cade question. If they're on the defense, they're probably going to get a freshman wide receiver question, right? Those questions are going to happen. But what I notice is you're not seeing those guys struggle to articulate ways that they believe Cade has gotten better this season, right? And sometimes that's not always the case. Sometimes guys are like, you can tell they're like, they're trying to be nice. They're trying to search for the right words.
Yeah.
They're trying to do the coach speak thing. It doesn't seem like that to me. But again, these guys are prepped for interviews. So.
Yeah, absolutely. But on the receiver front, I also wanted to hit on, Brian Wesco and TJ Moore continue to impress. It's very obvious that this team is going to factor them into this offense, and they have a chance to be a big time contributors. Too good, just both of them too good not to play. And we've already talked about Brian Wesco ad nauseum being an early enrollee. But yeah, TJ, they just continue to get rave reviews. He's such a they say he Tyler Brown was talking about kind of his get off and his release, just everything he does. He has a swagger to him. And just everything is so smooth, and it's like he's been in the program 3 or 4 years. And so that's what you want to hear. But and that's why he was a 5-star. It's crazy. It took them so long to give him his 5th star. When you watch the tape, you were like, oh yeah, this is definitely one of the top receivers in the country.
No doubt about it.
But man, I'm really excited to spot the ball and see those two on the field, because they do. I really like the makeup of this room in general. But their addition just means like the ceiling and the potential of this group could be one of the best that Clemson has had in quite some time.
Yeah, it could turn out to be a really special group when it's all said and done. Over the next couple seasons, this could turn out to be a really special group of wide receivers. And I know, going into it, it's hard to kind of think about it like that because of all that has happened, especially at that position over the past 3 seasons at Clemson. But when you just look at the makeup of the room, there's no reason it shouldn't work. So you got the right body types in there. You got the right guys. You got the right skill sets in there. So if it doesn't work, there's something else wrong, and it ain't a personnel problem. I can tell you that. If it doesn't work out this season, it's not a personnel problem.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it all shakes out in the end. And I'm not saying this is the next coming of Clemson's big push at being big time in the wide receiver, pushing wide receivers in the NFL and all that stuff like we were doing before, wide receiver U, if you will. But this room has the potential to really turn it back around for the Tigers.
Absolutely, man. I keep saying it. I mean, it's like especially when you look at the other programs that Clemson is going to be competing with, not just in the ACC, but around the country. I don't think there's a lot of wide receiver rooms that, I would take over Clemson's as far as the makeup of this group. And that's something we haven't been able to say in a while.
Yeah,
Again, it's that you gotta prove it on the field. It's a big year for them. It's a big year for Tyler Grisham.
And I think,
but man, it's hard not to like what you have right now.
I think the big part of it is like you hear the wide receivers talk. They know it. Yeah. They know it's prove it time. They know, like, you hear Antonio Williams talk during his interview. You hear Tyler Brown talk. Like, they know that it's time to prove it out on that field. They know it's time to go put up the numbers. And when you got a guy like Antonio Williams on your side, hey man, I'm excited to see what that dude's going to do this season, because I think this season is going to be special for him, and I can't wait to see it. I really can't wait to see it. So we're just going to sit back and watch. Hope most, if not all, of these guys stay healthy, and hope for the best. But talking about another big position group along Clemson and another group going through some growing pains and some things like that. That offensive line. What are you hearing about this offensive line? What are you hearing about Mac Luke? Early returns. Are they going to be vastly improved this year? What is that makeup of that offensive line looking early as far as early returns for fall camp goes?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned I hit on it briefly a little bit earlier. I think this group has just a lot more. I think the biggest thing is they have a lot more functional depth than they did last year. They feel really, really good, I think, about what they have in the starting five, but I think they feel a lot better about the guys behind them than they did last year. And I think that's a testament to bringing in a guy like Matt Luke. And I talked about the competition there has been a lot more noticeable. Not just, the positional battles and stuff, but, going up against this talented defensive line, it's just been, it's been a lot more competitive. And I think that's the start of getting that position group turned around in the direction we all want it to go, because offensive line has long been, even before Dabo was here, has long been the position that Clemson just did not produce very well at. Have not had a ton of guys drafted, and that's been a selling point or a negative recruiting talking point for the longest. Not just under Thomas Austin, it happened under Robbie Caldwell and any offensive line coach you've had before it. So now this is the first year in a long time where you've brought in a guy, who has no ties to Clemson and has done it at a high level at multiple different places. And so, this is a year where you have a big year and a marked improvement on the offensive line, can parlay into, Matt Luke on the trail, landing some of the big fish that Clemson had got in, occasionally, but now you can bring multiple guys of a Jackson Carman's caliber, or Tristan Lay was a 5-star coming out Mitch Hyatt. Mitch Hyatt was a highly rated guy coming out. Like getting those types of guys, but not just one guy who was headlining that entire class, but you get multiple guys of that caliber in the same class. That's what I think would be really exciting, because it's just never made sense to me why Clemson has been such a line of scrimmage focused program on the defensive side of the ball, but haven't been but they haven't been on the offensive line. It's never really made sense. So I think you have a potential first round pick on your offensive line already in Blake Miller. If he has a big year, they a lot of NFL mock drafts have him as a first round pick, which would be massive, from an optics standpoint for Clemson. Yeah. Selfishly, I'd like it for him to use his fourth year if he wants to, but also if he has a strong year and gets drafted in the first round for year one of Matt Luke, like that's something you can point to. He's like, man, look, you saw what happened. You saw what happened with Clemson's offensive line before Matt Luke got here, and in year one he has a first round pick. Like right. That means a lot, and that will do. It does a lot to kind of, kind of shed those Clemson can't develop offensive linemen, kind of narrative, which unfortunately had a lot of truth to it. So that's my long-winded way of saying the offensive line is really promising this year, just with what you have returning and the young talent you brought in the last couple cycles under an experienced, tier one caliber offensive line coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, man, I think I've made it very clear we hired the right guy to get the job done. And he's not going to fix all Clemson's problems this season along the offensive line, but you can already see the improvement just by the way those guys talk in interviews to me. The attitude is completely different. They look excited about football. They sound excited about football. They sound like there's just been a breath of fresh air breathed into that room. And I think it's going to pay dividends this season. Again, I'm not saying they're going to go out there and be a top 5, top 10, top 15 offensive line. I don't know what they'll end up being at the end of the season. But I do know that they're going to continually to get better under a guy like Matt Luke. The guy's he's got too much football knowledge, and he's too good at coaching the offensive line position for it not to for it to translate onto the field. So again, who knows what that looks like at season's end and how much, when the dust settles of the 2024 season and we're looking back at the end of the season and me and you were talking about, improved groups. I think offensive line is one of those groups that we'll be talking about. It'll just be by how much they improved. And you mentioned the possibilities out there for some of these bigger time offensive linemen that we have. So I'm excited to see what he's able to do in year one. And more importantly, I look forward to him building an offensive line culture at Clemson University, because as you mentioned, I think it's something that's been sorely lacking at Clemson for as long as I can remember, as long as I've been a Clemson fan, basically.
Yep.
We have not been serious about building the offensive side of the ball in the line of scrimmage like we have on the defensive side of the ball. And, to your point, it really makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. Clemson has been known for their presence along the defensive line for,
decades.
A decade plus, decades at this point.
You go back to, you can go back to the Tommy Bowden years. You had, you were putting defensive linemen in the NFL, first round defensive linemen. Gaines Adams, rest in peace. You have that pedigree. You go back to the Danny Ford era. The guys you were putting in the league there. Clemson has been a defensive line factory for over multiple coaching staffs. Obviously, the current one has been the current head coach has put in the most and has really taken it to another level. But Clemson has always been a great school for defensive line talent, and I think that's partially because the state of South Carolina over the years has been one of the best, especially per capita for defensive line talent. But now you never parlayed that, and you never matched that on the offensive side of the ball, and it's just like why not? Other programs have done it. there's not another program you can name that has won at the level that Clemson has over the last 20 years that, has produced as poorly at offensive line as Clemson has. And that sucks.
It makes no sense, but I think finally we're starting to we've made the right hire, and we're going to start turning that around, and I look forward to it because if there's one thing you want to hang your hat on as a program, it's being elite along the offensive and defensive lines, and that's really where we need to get to as far as the offensive side of the ball. So continue to hope we can get there, but it was good to hear. Let's talk about the defense a little bit. It was good to hear from a lot of the defensive players today. We talked about, what they thought of the offense and what they thought of, kind of how they looked. But, let's talk about some of these young defenders that are going to have to step up into a much bigger role this season. You talk about an Avion Terrell, you talk about a Shelton Lewis. These guys are true sophomores, and they look to be the two guys running out there first, starting at cornerback for the Clemson Tigers. And obviously got a guy in Jaden Lucas that, obviously still in the green jersey, still physically limited. A great player went on the field, but the problem with him is his availability. He hasn't been available very often. So we don't know what's going to happen there. And then obviously at safety, you got a bunch of dogs coming back. You got Tyler Venables coming back. You got R.J. Mickens coming back. You got Khalil Barnes. Sherrod Koval's coming back off of injury. That dude's flashed at times. So there's a ton going on in the back end, but a ton of young. Although they've gotten thrown into the fire and they've gotten their experience and they've gotten their licks, still you're going to be leaning on a lot of young guys. So what are your thoughts early fall camp returns on those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just Mike Reed and Mickey Conn continue to be a fantastic 1-2 punch as far as evaluation. I think that's just one thing that continues to jump out at me. They have had, they just have a knack of finding guys. Like not every guy in that secondary is like the highly recruited 5-star. I mean, like Jaden Lucas was a big time recruit. But Ricardo Jones was a top 100 kid, but not everybody in that room was like that. Shelton Lewis, nobody, unless you were like really tuned in with the state of Georgia high school, recruiting landscape, nobody knew who Shelton Lewis was coming out of high school. He was a mid 3-star from Stockbridge. Like nobody, and he comes in when the depth was tested last year and performed extremely admirably. And he just has a different mentality. Like they just, Mike Reed and Mickey Conn, they haven't been about star rankings. They've been it's always been about, are you a good football player? Do you have the mentality that we want? Like, it doesn't matter what the star number or star ranking is next to your name or the ranking is next to your name. And that's one of the things that's been so impressive with this group. People talking about Khalil Barnes. Yeah, no. He was a guy nobody was talking about. He was a Wake Forest commit until Clemson and Notre Dame kind of got in on him late. And so he comes in and is a freshman All-American. Like you have that type of evaluation is what has kept, especially on the defensive side of the ball, kept it so strong. And so, you continue to hear nothing but good things about the older guys. Of course, you have R.J. Mickens and Tyler Venables and some of the experienced guys coming back. But then you mentioned the young guys, like at safety, Kylan Griffin. You got Sherrod Koval coming back. The young guys at nickel, whether it's Khalil Barnes or Ashton Hampton, who has been people have been raving about Ashton Hampton. He's another fall enrollee coming in and being as impressive as he's been has been really, really cool to hear. So, I mean, you have to feel good. You mentioned you're going to be leaning on a lot of young guys, but you're leaning on a lot of young guys who have played a good bit because of how last season went. Right. You can, that's about all you can ask for when you lose a first round talent at corner. And you have enough veterans in key spots to where you feel good about the leadership. And You mentioned Jaden Lucas. He's one of the older guys in the cornerback room now. And it's just like with him, it's about availability because when he's healthy, he's a unicorn in terms of his athleticism. I mean, I still remember that interception he had in the was it the Under Armour All-American game? I don't remember what it was, some All-Star game where he legitimately like jumped like 6 feet in the air. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, and that's a kid you got in your, I mean, he's right in your own backyard. Like, so it just, I want it so bad for him because I think he is a guy that we haven't talked about a ton, but a guy that, Clemson is going to be relying on a ton. And so availability is definitely is the thing with him. Because I think when he is 100%, I think he has the potential to be a first round type corner, just from his athletic traits, his build, extremely rangy. Those arms, he's got like legit, like crazy long arms, like everything that Mike Reed wants in a corner. He has, and of course, Avion Terrell being as special as he is, you have to feel good about
that dude just walked on the field different.
Yeah,
that's crazy, man. There's something in that Terrell family. I don't know what they got going on over there.
Yeah, I don't know what they feed them, man, but they just
what they got going on.
Hopefully they bring some more of them.
Yeah, keep them coming to Clemson. Whatever you're doing, just keep them coming to Clemson. But yeah, man, it's going to be exciting to see these young guys, and you heard them talk in interviews today, and that to me it sounds like their head is in the right place, right? You could tell Avion Terrell, very humble dude, like just seems like a guy that's very about his business, and he's going to go out on the field and do what he does, and he's going to leave it there. And then you got Shelton Lewis. It's kind of the opposite of that. He's that more flashy corner. He's that more talk at the receiver and play that type of game, and let when he gets you. So I like the different personalities that we have back there, and how they kind of bounce off of each other, and interested to see what Jaden Lucas can put together this season, because he can. I mean, that could be an X factor for the Clemson defense if we can keep him healthy and on the field. To have a guy like that that you can just roll out there whenever, that's a game changer, man. Because that dude is different when he's out on the field. So, but I mean, that's kind of fall camp intel thus far. I think Clemson overall, you got to be fairly happy if you're a Clemson fan at this point. Again, only 4 guys in green jerseys, nobody severely injured or hurt. Just 4 guys working back from, a little bit of tweaks here or there. But other than that, you got a fully healthy team. You got a team that seems to be competing. You got a team that seems to be in the right headspace heading into the 2024 season. And, we'll see where it shakes out. I'm sure we'll have tons to talk about next week after the scrimmage. And I think we'll have a couple special guests on next week too. So a little plug for that. Y'all stay tuned. So I think we'll go ahead and leave the fall camp intel there and transition into our next topic here. And but before we get into that, guys, we got 42 people in the live chat right now. If you guys can go ahead and hit that like button for us, like button. I know I say it all the time, but it really helps us out with the algorithm, helps us out with the views on the video, just overall boosts anytime we do the live shows. So if you could and you're in here, hit that like button for us. Consider subscribing. Me and Jordan do this show every Friday at 5:30 p.m. We'll be right here. And then also, if you guys don't know and you're new to the channel, we do a post-game live show after every single Clemson game all throughout the season as well. So this show will continue throughout the season, and then we'll do an additional show, a live show immediately following every Clemson game. So stay tuned for that. We'll be breaking down all the Clemson games. We'll be previewing all the Clemson games. We'll be doing all that here on the show all throughout the season. So thank you guys for stopping in. Really do appreciate you. And at the end of every show, we turn it over to the comment section. So if you're thinking about going somewhere, don't. Stay tuned. Get your comments in the comment section. If you want to ensure that we answer your question, hit that super chat feature for us. 1, it'll help us out. 2, it guarantees that your question gets read and responded to on the live chat. Okay, so appreciate every single one of you. For stopping in and showing some love to the show. Every single one of you are greatly appreciated. But let's go ahead and get into our next segment, Jordan. We're going to talk a little bit of recruiting now. So a couple things have happened since we've talked recruiting on the show, Jordan. And I'm going to start first and foremost with a recruitment that did not really go our way. And this recruitment was an interesting one, obviously. Everybody knows Clemson was in the market for another wide receiver, Dylan Alford. He was a former Ole Miss commit who decommitted from Ole Miss. Well, actually wasn't decommitted from Ole Miss, but he came to the spring game for Clemson, and then he came back for camp this summer, worked out for camp, left camp, really wanted a Clemson offer. He decommits from Ole Miss. 30 minutes later, announces that he got his official offer from Clemson. So all things point to Clemson's leading. Clemson's going to land Alfred. That's going to be their third wide receiver of the class, so on and so forth. Well, things didn't work out that way. He scheduled a visit to the All-In Cookout. After he left the All-In Cookout, he went to Ole Miss. Obviously, he ended up committing to Ole Miss. So, Jordan, quickly, what happened in the Dylan Alford recruitment there? And then we can move on to a commitment that we did just recently get.
Yeah, it's one of those things. When we talked about it, leading into that weekend, Clemson absolutely was in the driver's seat. They were in the driver's seat to land his commitment. He goes to the All-In Cookout, leaves a little bit early, but that was to be expected. That was to be expected. He went on a visit to Ole Miss following that had already been scheduled as well, and the tides kind of turned after that. And that's what the reality of recruiting nowadays. Everything can go your way, and everything can point in your favor, and then something can happen at the very last minute, and end up choosing somebody else. Even Clemson, whose recruiting process, has made them a lot less prone to having that happen to them. It still happens. It's one of those realities, and it's disappointing. We'll see kind of how they pivot. You do have two guys in the class already that you expect to play receiver, and Juju Preston and Marquise Henderson, who both are definitely more smaller build, like athlete types. Marquise, I think it definitely has a lot more. I want to say a higher ceiling as far as his frame and his speed. He's one of the fastest players in the state, probably the fastest player in the state. But he's playing primarily running back at Belton Honea Path. He doesn't, he's going to be more of a work in progress. If I had to expect when he gets on campus.
And no wide receiver scheduled to leave next year.
Right.
Obviously, unless they leave via the portal or, somebody decides to leave early. But nobody's out of eligibility next year. So that also may be another reason that Clemson kind of stays with the two that got committed and, kind of shuts it down at this point. So we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, 50 years to a recruitment that did go our way, Jordan. We did get a recruit here recently. Am I correct?
Yes, we did.
All right. Tell us a little bit about our new recruit.
Yeah. So after we got off last week, shortly after, a 4-star athlete, Shavar Young from Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee, ends up committing to Clemson. He is in the 2026 class. Clemson absolutely likes him at corner. He plays both sides at his high school. Some programs were recruiting him at receiver, others were recruiting him at corner. Clemson and Mike Reed loves him at corner. and so he's going to be he's the first addition in that defensive back class for 2026. Really, really talented kid. I think he still has a lot to go a lot of room to go because he's kind of he's dividing his attention at two positions. But I think the athletic traits are absolutely there. He can run. Just everything Mike Reed likes in a corner. So that is a really, really good addition for the 2026 class, and things are getting off to a good start there. Welcome to Clemson, Shavar Young. If you watched his Instagram live, he did it. It was a funny kind of bait and switch type of commitment. He initially revealed Tennessee gear. He had all Tennessee gear. He's going to commit to Tennessee, and then him and his mom looked at each other, and then they both took off their Tennessee stuff to reveal the Clemson stuff underneath. So that was kind of cool. It's kind of funny because we had another recruit do that with Tennessee specifically. I don't remember which one it was. Was it? Oh man, who? Oh man, I can't think of it right now. But it was either in last class or this class. That kind of did a fake out with Tennessee.
I can't remember.
I wonder if that's intentional now. Probably not. But I thought it was funny regardless. But big pickup for the Tigers. The state of Tennessee is definitely still a priority for Clemson as far as recruiting.
Yeah.
So being able to get guys you want, being able to get guys that you want is a massive deal, especially with Tennessee kind of returning a little bit to form and being a much bigger force on the recruiting landscape. Especially, we know how the recruitment of David Sanders has gone, and Tennessee has been right there in the thick of it. So you don't want to lose too many more of those. You don't want to lose those battles, in the future. You want to, right. That's a school that, if Tennessee is if you're battling with them, it's a big deal if you win one over them because it's important. So, massive pickup for the 2026 class, massive pickup for Mike Reed, and really excited about how that class is shaping up with some of the targets that they are prioritizing early.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, man, good news on the trail for the Tigers. Obviously, continue to working that 2025 class and already getting some 2026 commits trickling in. So it's always a good thing. Recruiting starts not winding down, but, being less talked about this time of year as fall camp and, and everything's starting to ramp back up. All right, guys, we got 38 people in the live chat right now. We're about an hour and 10 minutes into the show. So thank you guys for showing up and hanging out with us. We got one more segment, and then we are going to turn it over to the comment section. So stick out with us for a little bit longer. We got one more segment, and then we will turn it over to you fine people in the comment section. So without further ado, Jordan, let's go ahead and get into our last segment of the night, and that is none other than BYOG or sell, my friend. And I'll let you kick it off tonight.
All right, I got a question about the defensive end position and kind of how that room is going to shake out.
Okay.
By mid-season, Darian Mayo will be getting more snaps than Jaheim Lawson.
Ooh.
And I guess by proxy, that also includes like Zaire Patterson as well.
I don't know. I'm going to go sell, I think, just because I've heard so much good about Jaheim Lawson this offseason. You've seen what he's done with his body over the summer, but not by a large margin because I I think, like you, I do believe Darian Mayo is going to work himself into this room in pretty short order when it comes to the rotation. I think he's going to get on the field this season pretty often. But I will go with Jaheim Lawson there, and I will sell on that one.
I asked because, Jaheim Lawson is a guy. I specifically picked Jaheim Lawson because he's a guy that has definitely been more of a pass rush specialist than everybody else in the room.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and kind of getting him up to one of the goals of this offseason was getting him up to, where he can be a viable option in terms of playing the run and in certain packages. And Darian Mayo is the prototype of what Clemson has been looking for in recent cycles with the defensive end position, trying to beef up, be bigger. So I was interested to hear your take on that. But
Yeah.
I'm sell as well for now because I think there's enough there's enough snaps there for Jaheim Lawson to work, especially on third downs.
Yeah, for sure.
You can kind of just let him at times.
Yeah, even if Jaheim Lawson is just used as a pass rush specialist this year. But I just like the work that he's done this offseason with getting his body in a better spot where, he can compete on some other downs other than just being thought of as a pass rush guy.
Yeah. I mean, imagine especially if you want to drop like 8 in coverage or something like that. Imagine like a 3-man front with the 3 defensive end kind of front with Peter Woods and TJ Parker, and then Shaq Lawson just getting after the quarterback. That could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that could be, that could be crazy.
Or AJ Hoffler, throw him in there.
AJ Hoffler, throw AJ Hoffler in there. There's a lot. I think it's pretty interesting the makeup of this defensive line group and some of the things that they may be able to do with moving guys around. And you've heard even Wes Goodwin talk about how guys are going to move around and be in different spots this year and how they're going to mess with things. So, you could see some odd formations up fronts for the Tigers playing with 3-man fronts and different things like that to get pressure on the quarterback and kind of do, some different looks for the offense. So I think that's obviously something that's on the table, and you have the unique body types in that room that can really make that a lot more of a reality than you could, if you didn't have guys like, a 6'7" Darian Mayo or guys like that in the room.
I'm with you.
All right. Let's see what I got here. Excuse me. All right. Let's see. I'm going to go.
Well, you figure that I'll answer a question real quick. Ronald asks, do you guys think there's pressure on Cade to? I'll star that one for later. Chase says, I like the 3-3-5 concept. I mean, yeah, I think I don't think it's going to be like a base defense or anything like that. Wes is always going to be a 4-down guy, but when you want to kind of show a different look, especially on third downs, and you want to get guys in coverage like that. That could be fun. You could do a lot. I think you could do a lot of stuff with that. We'll see how much they rep that kind of thing. But it could be a nice little package to throw in there to kind of just throw some defenses off. I think you have especially with the amount of versatility you have on the back end. I think that's something you could do.
All right, I'm ready.
All right.
So BYOG or sell. I'm going to go defensive side of the ball. And a guy I was just talking about earlier, Jaden Lucas. So Jaden Lucas will play in more than 10 play significant snaps in more than 10 football games this season.
I'm gonna buy or BYOG. Probably for just selfish reasons, because I want him to play and I want him to be available, because it's a big year for him.
Yeah.
Being a junior and all of that. Like, he has a chance to make some money if he kind of puts it all together and he's healthy and on the field. So I'm going to say BYOG. I mean, he's a guy, injuries be damned. I think he's a guy they want to be involved and be one of the anchors of that secondary. And you've heard great things about him. He's a guy that, when he's healthy, he's been really, really good in the offseason. And so it's just about being able to stay on the field for long enough. And that's just something he's been battling with. But I'm going to be BYOG for selfish reasons. There's reasons to be kind of worried about his availability, but I think he puts it together this year. I think he's got that talent.
Okay. Cool. I like it.
All right. We both did defense that time. So I'm going to kind of flip it back to the offense. I was going to ask you an NFL draft question, but I'm going to save that one, because I feel like that's something we should do like in the season, because it's probably not fair to try to project that far out. But okay. I still want to keep it about this position group, though. So offensive line.
Okay.
Offensive line. Ryan Linthicum keeps the starting job. We haven't done this one, have we? Ryan Linthicum keeps the starting job for the entire duration of the regular season.
Man, that's a tough one for me, right? Because I want to say sell, because if I say sell, then that would mean he's played pretty well, right? The offensive line has improved. He's an upperclassman.
If you say B, so I said Ryan Linthicum keeps keeps the job for the duration of the regular season. So
I want to say buy, because that would mean he played really well, right? He's an upperclassman. He held on the position. Obviously, our offensive line's probably in a pretty good place.
Yes, assuming no injuries, Chase. Yeah, we're assuming no injuries in this scenario.
But then part of me is like, you got that young dude Harris Sewell over there, man, and I saw what he could do last year, and you'd have him for potentially 3 more seasons at that position. So that's a really hard one for me. But as of right now, and just seeing how Ryan Linthicum came in from the summer, I will buy. I will BYOG on that. I think he's going to hold on to it, barring injury. He's definitely got his body in a place where he's never had it at Clemson thus far. So I think that's encouraging, and hopefully Matt Luke has breathed new life into him and the rest of the guys on there. So I'll buy. I will. All right.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think, funnily enough, and it's probably not a good idea. But one of the things that kind of sold me on him potentially being the guy was a clip that the football page posted of him in one-on-ones with DeMonte Capehart, and he was absolutely giving DeMonte hell. Like, it was not what I would have expected. I mean, with how powerful DeMonte is, he has, like, maybe other than Peter Woods, he has like the most powerful hands on the team. He might actually have more powerful hands than Peter Woods, especially since he's older. And he absolutely stalemated him, and I was like, wow. So I mean, I think he's done the work. I hope you guys can't hear that. They're doing yard work outside.
No, you're good.
But yeah, I think he's done the work this offseason. So, I mean, we'll see. But, I think, we kind of were skeptical about him in the offseason and just kind of like, well, I mean, he's been here the longest and he's just kind of the logical next one up. But haven't seen much of him. And, the times he did play, he wasn't overly impressive. But, he might be ready to take that step. And the coaching staff seems to feel like he's ready to take that step. So, yeah, I'm with you. BYOG.
Sounds good. All right. Last one, and then we'll move on to the comment section. I'm going to go offensive side of the ball as well, and I'm going to go to the running back room.
All right.
And this is going to be a depth question as far as how it shakes out after Phil Maffa, right? So right now, as it stands, obviously Phil Maffa, undisputed RB1. Yeah, Chase, my lights aren't going out. My camera keeps flickering with the lighting, though. I don't know. That's my webcam. That's not my lights in here.
You're shutting your power off. Oh, my God.
No. That storm is over.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I paid my power bill. I think so. But no, that's my camera flickering in and out. But Phil Maffa, obviously RB1, undisputed. No question about it. Easy, right? Now it gets a little sticky with how it's shaken out after Phil Maffa, right? Keith Adams Jr. seems to solidify himself, but he's not really a change of pace guy. He's more of the same style of running back that Phil Maffa is. You got a Jay Haynes in there. You got Eazy-E in there. If you want to take a freshman, a guy like that. So my question is going to focus around Jay Haynes, right? BYOG or sell. Jay Haynes, by season's end, solidifies himself as RB2.
I think this is a pretty easy BYOG. I don't want to say pretty easy, but it's a fairly easy BYOG because I do think Keith Adams brings a little bit to the table, but I think Jarvis Green is just a different he's just a different style back, and I think that just lends to more of what Garrett Riley wants to do. To have that kind of dynamic attack. Again, it's Phil Maffa's show, so he's going to get the majority of the carries. But if you want to throw something different, I think Jarvis Green, who we didn't mention, but Jay Haynes, and I forgot to mention because Jarvis Green is limited right now too. So I think Jay Haynes is I think he's kind of the logical, and just from what the coaching staff, Dabo and CJ Spiller and the offensive staff, they've talked about it. I mean, they wanted to get him on the field last year, and he just wasn't available. And so, ideally, if he's healthy, he's made I think he's made a lot of strides as far as his body and nutrition. That was one thing they mentioned. He had to get right there. He's made that transformation this offseason. So, I mean, you hope the hope is that he's more durable and he can give you what they tried to get him to be able to give you last year. So, Jay Haynes, RB2 by season's end. Yeah, I'll BYOG for that.
All right. Sounds good. All right, guys. Well, that time has come, and that is the end of the planned portion of the All-In Show. We are an hour and 23 minutes in right now. We got 40 people in the live chat. Hey, before we move on, go ahead and hit that like button for us. Consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed, and supporting the channel by the Super Chat feature if you do deem necessary. But appreciate all you guys showing up, hanging out with us for over an hour at this point. Now we're going to transition the show. We're going to turn it over to the comment section. We've already started starring a couple of your comments, but keep getting your questions in here, and we'll go through as many as we can before we hop up out of here, Jordan. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, and you can start knocking out these questions.
All right, let's do it. Okay, we already have a couple starred. John asked about Zaire Patterson earlier in the show. He said, have I missed it, or has any coach or player mentioned Zaire by name? He seems way back in the shadows still. Yeah, other than an offhand comment from Dabo about Zaire having his best offseason of his career, no. I mean, and I would hope he had his best offseason. He's a senior. I mean, but best offseason just means best offseason relative to the off seasons he's had in the past. So, how much? What does that really mean?
Right.
I'm just. I've kind of. It is what it is. It's a really weird situation because he's a guy that you would just have penciled in to be like, okay, well, he's going to leave and transfer at some point, but he's still here. So you wonder kind of what the plan is for him and what his plans are. Because or is he just fine where he is and just being on the team and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think that's something that only he knows. So, but yeah, I until something happens, I've just kind of he's going to be in the back burner, a depth piece, but nothing more. And I don't even expect him to be a major factor in the rotation because I think you have guys in that room that have showed more to this point, and show a lot more promise. And you're better off just playing the younger guys. You mentioned AJ Hoffler, Darian Mayo, and then Cade Denhoff even is they came in the same class, but Denhoff has provided a lot more production than Zaire has. So you're just like, well, what do you do? So I mean, unless some catastrophic injuries happen, I don't really expect him to be a major factor this year, which sucks because I think they keep talking about they've talked about for years. I mean, when he came in, how gifted he is, but he just has not put it together and committed to being a great player. So is what it is. We'll see what happens this year, but I'm not.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I mean, he came in with so much promise, but
top 100 kid.
I haven't seen it, and that's unfortunate. John's got one for us here, Jordan.
I was just starring it, so that was perfect.
BYOG or sell with the newly added size. Cade will have north of 300 yards this year. He was under 200 last year.
Yeah, I'm going to say BYOG. How many? How many did DJ have in 2022?
I'd have to go back.
This wasn't Garrett Riley's offense, but I think he had like 400, 500 yards. I think Cade can get there. I think if the offensive line is improved, I mean a lot of Cade's production was hurt by sack yardage. I mean, Clemson wasn't an overly high sack total team, but they gave up enough, and he, especially in the sacks that he did allow were very, very costly at times, and they were, sometimes it was him running backwards and trying to make a play, and then he gets chased down.
He was doing that high school stuff.
Yeah, so I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the sack yardage I bet was pretty high, even though the sack total wasn't super high. It was about middle of the road.
Tickle Tiger mentioned something that you mentioned to me before he hopped on the show.
Yeah,
70-yard run on an RPO in Jervy.
Yeah, I did see that, Tickle Tiger. Yeah, that's what you want to hear, and it makes you makes you realize, like, well, when Cade was able to run, especially north to south, he's not laterally. It's kind of hit or miss, but when he's able to get to north to south, and he can, he doesn't have to turn his head anywhere. He can just look straight ahead and run. Cade is pretty fast. I mean, you saw him. You saw his speed at some unfortunate times, like the sack fumble and stuff like that, where he showed off his speed, or the pick six he threw against Charleston Southern.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate time to show it off.
Yeah, now you've taken me down bad memory lane, but but Cade can run. And Garrett Riley wants the quarterback run game to be a big factor in this offense because it does open things up. And we saw with DJ, even though it was a different style, he was a different style of runner. When DJ was running the ball well, the rest of the offense was very open. You saw it against, whether it was the Wake Forest game or the NC State game or the Miami game where DJ had like almost 100 yards rushing. Yeah. like that was when the offense was, and this is a completely different scheme. It's a different system, but it's the same idea. When the defense has to, account for the quarterback run game, it opens so many things up, and it forces, the defensive ends and the linebackers to kind of, they can't over pursue or they can't commit to one thing because they know that in the back of their head, oh man, he could pull it, or he could get out to the edge, and we're all of a sudden we've been giving up a 15-yard gain because we committed to the run or we over pursued. So like it's an important part, and you can do so much off of that because you can pass out of that too. So there's a lot of benefits to being able to run the quarterback, and Cade making the physical transformation and being bulkier to be able to withstand those hits, because he'll have to take some if we're going to run him. That's what you want. So that was my long-winded. But that was my long-winded answer to that. BYOG, I think he can get to 300 yards rushing, and I think if he does, I think that's good enough. I don't think he needs to get much more than that. Like I don't think we need to run him heavy, but if he can get to 300 yards and we can tone down the catastrophic sacks, he can get there. Jay says, I think we underestimated what was actually installed last spring when they didn't have any scholarship wide receiver. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that was something we did not. I mean, we talked about how unfortunate it was, but I think it was one thing that was definitely undersold as far as, man, Garrett really didn't have any of the pieces he was going to need to work with for 2023 in the spring. And Cade, it was like in fall we threw it all. We had to throw it all on everybody at once, and then that Duke game came around, and it was just too much. And I think you saw that everything was moving too fast for Cade, for the rest of not just Cade, but the rest of the offense. The penalties, the guys, out of position. It was just a mess all around. So I definitely think that had a lot to do with it. Todd asks, how do you all feel about Cade this year? Well, I think we've talked about that. I mean, we feel, really, really, optimistic about, his ability to take that next step in year two. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to think he'll be a better quarterback than last year. How much better is the question, and that'll determine whether this team is 8-9 win team or a 10-11 plus win team in a playoff caliber ACC championship team.
I think I think the big thing is he's got a wide receiver room around him now that is going to help him.
Yeah.
And then
this is the best group of weapons any Clemson quarterback has had since 2019. So
right.
I think
he's got the weapons. We'll see how much improved the offensive line is. We obviously know what he's got at running back. So I think the pieces are there for him to take that next step. But that next step again that's on him. We've heard the leadership, we've heard the intangible stuff. We've seen the transformation in his body. He's put on some weight. He's got a little bit thicker. Being a vocal leader, all of that stuff. But again, all that has to translate to the field. So again, cautiously optimistic
because
hoping to take that next step.
Yeah, and I think we have a good reason to, like I said, I think we have, you mentioned it, we have a good reason to think he'll be better. And so, we had good reason to think DJ was going to be better from 2021 to 2022, and he was, especially for the first half of that season. DJ was kind of on the fringe of Heisman talks. He was playing really well. So, you hope that we can get more than that this year, but I think that kind of play for an entire season gets you to 10 wins, ACC championship.
Yeah, I don't think Cade's got to go out there and win any Heisman trophies.
Right.
He doesn't have to have a Joe Burrow like season or a Trevor Lawrence like season, or we don't need him to do that.
Yeah,
we need him to play within the offense, make the proper reads, get rid of the ball when necessary, and take off and use his feet and his athleticism when the play breaks down. That's it. Just play within the system. He doesn't have to go out there and play hero ball. We don't need him to be Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson.
Right.
So,
that's not what this offense demands either.
No.
It's like it's you should be able to if Cade can be Max Duggan,
right?
Like I think you're set. I mean, you might and I think even giving like Max Duggan level play gives you a shot against Georgia, which is kind of ironic to say considering what happened to TCU in that national championship game. But if you can get that level of play, the Max Duggan level of play that he had throughout that regular season, like you're, I think you're at worst. I mean, you're in Charlotte.
Yeah, Ronald Burgess makes a good point. He needs a Kelly Bryant type season. Yeah,
I think you need more passing. I think Kelly didn't have as many passing touchdowns as he would. He didn't even have as many passing touchdowns as Cade did last year. But the steady play.
From a steady, just you knew what you were going to get when he rolled out.
Make the plays that are there. Don't turn the ball over a ton.
Like, obviously, Cade's a far better passer than Kelly Bryant. I don't mean that in any way. I'm not saying that at all. But just that steady presence out on the field. That's what Cade needs to be this season.
Right. I'm with you.
Don't do anything crazy. Just go be that steady presence.
All right. That was a long-winded one. Eric asked a question about the tight end room. He says, outside of Jake, what tight end is proven? Well, none really. I mean, as far as proven production on the field. We've talked about the depth and how excited we are about the tight end room. And there's not a lot of guys outside of Jake. There's not guys with a whole lot of production. But I think we think it's deep from a talent perspective, not necessarily a proven production standpoint. I think this is the best the room has looked in quite some time, especially when you factor in the addition of Christian Bentaker, who we've raved about consistently, since he signed. Like I think he's a different level of tight end than Clemson has had in a long time. I think he's going to leave here one of the greats. That's putting a lot of pressure on him. That's probably not fair, but he has that kind of potential. He is a unicorn in terms of his athleticism. He has an NFL ready body right now, and so it's about whether he can get acclimated and into the offense. And I think he'll get some burn this year. I think he's too good not to play at least a little bit. So, outside of him, I think Josh Sapp, and Olsen Pat Henry give you a level of athleticism that you haven't really had in past years. And of course, and then you have Marcus Dixon, who's still there, who has, he's kind of been on the back burner, but I think he can give you some utility, special teams and as an inline blocker. Maybe not, he's not quite the pass catching threat as the rest of the guys in the room. But with Sage Ennis being gone, someone's going to have to be more of that blocking tight end, and I think he kind of fits that mold. I think Christian Bentaker can too. So we'll kind of see. But I like the makeup of this. We really like the makeup of this room, and Jake being there, I think, is just you know what you're going to get out of Jake. Extremely talented, going to be a tougher defenses to stop. So I think that's all you need to have a big year this year. But you do want to see the guys behind him get some burn and kind of step into some bigger roles. So we'll see. Jay asks, who's leaving the wide receiver room after this year? Yeah, I don't want to speculate.
No one's scheduled.
I mean, there's not. Everybody has eligibility for next year, but we'll kind of see. I like to think that
we've got pesky transfer portal.
Yeah, there's that pesky transfer portal, and I think you have some guys, if they have the years that you could, like the NFL could be an option. I think, but I don't know. I think you have a lot of, especially the guys that you're going to be leaning on this year. I think a lot of them are guys that you're going to have again next year. Even like Antonio Williams is technically going to be draft eligible, but he just always strike me as a 4-year guy. Like I don't think he. I guess if he had a just an out of this world season and
maybe, but
yeah,
I don't really see. I don't.
he's always struck me as a 4-year. Like, you're going to have him again because he loves Clemson. That was when Clemson offered. It was a foregone conclusion where he was going. Like, even when he was, when South Carolina was the favorite for him, and Clemson, they were holding off on the offer. Like, you knew once if that Clemson offer came, he was coming, and
Yeah,
that's exactly what like he's a Clemson guy. Like, he's a Clemson kid through and through.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no doubt.
I don't want to, but we don't know. I'm not in his head, but that's just my feel. I've always felt.
Come seasons in, there will probably be some transfers, particularly at the wide receiver position. Just because of the volume of guys that are there. There'll probably be a couple that'll leave. For more playing time somewhere else, or better situation, or whatever the case may be. So definitely wouldn't surprise me. There's probably going to be some turnover there.
Yeah,
but who it's going to be at this point?
Well, we thought there was going to be turnover last year, so who knows? But
yeah, we thought we were going to lose people after the spring.
Yeah,
in the wide receiver position, we thought there was a possibility that we lose a guy or two, and nobody hit the portal. So,
and I think a lot of it's going to. I think how much burn and where Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore are sitting after this year will tell a lot, because you have guys who are, you have a couple of true sophomores and Noble Johnson and Ronan Hannafin, who are kind of in a weird spot, because you have those two talented true freshmen coming in,
right?
And Noble and Ronan really got no burn last year, other than some special teams play and some late game garbage time.
And how much burn are they really going to get this year?
Yeah, you just kind of wonder. So those two are kind of in an interesting spot as far as where things shake out on the depth chart, and there's already so many guys, older guys in the room that just came back, and between Antonio Williams, Adam Randall, Troy Stellato, Cole Turner, Tyler Brown coming in as a true freshman, with them, and he was the guy that flashed the most. So they're kind of in a weird spot as far as
that'll definitely be something to watch as the season goes on, and as we get towards the end of the season, there'll certainly be, I would assume, some turnover there. Who it'll be, again, anyone's guess at this point, but there'll probably be some attrition at that position. But again, we're already bringing on two new guys that are already committed in, the 2025 class. So we shall see. And what's the scholarship numbers going to look like next year? Is next year going to be the year where everybody's got to be on scholarship that's on the roster? So
that is a good question.
That's coming eventually in college football too. So, everybody's got to look out for that. Where we're going to, 105 or, plus scholarships.
Yeah.
So
that's going to make all of this so interesting. Yeah.
That's going to be
one thing I didn't even.
That's going to be crazy when that happens. So
Ronald says Antonio Williams may succumb to the NIL from another school money talk. No, first of all, it's already happened, and he said no. Like, he could have gone to Ole Miss this past offseason. He said no. And from the NIL standpoint, he's being taken care of. So I don't expect that to be something. I mean, I guess you never know, but no.
You never say never. Anybody can come in and write any sort of check they want.
Yeah.
But I think Clemson would do whatever they could to retain him on the roster.
He's one of those guys worth retaining, because I don't think. And I think he would
hope something like that's not something that's happened really too much and at all to Clemson. So, hopefully that's something we can continue to prevent with, recruiting your own roster each and every year, and, focusing a lot of those NIL deals on roster retention and stuff like that, like we've done in the past. Jordan, we got a couple super chats here. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Really do appreciate it, man. Supporting the show. Thank you so much. If Cade performs well this season, do you think he will return?
Well, I guess it depends on your definition of well. I tend to think so, because I feel like even if he has a strong year this year, I think scouts would probably want to see another year from him.
Mm-hmm.
They would probably feel. I don't know if like a ton of GMs right now, even if he has a strong season, would be willing to bet on, his one really really good season. But we would never say never. But I get that feeling that Cade is going to be a 4-year guy, just because his development has not been, he came in right away and ready to go. Like he obviously needed developing to do from a mental and physical standpoint. So I'd be surprised if he had a strong enough year that he was in. I think it would take like him getting like first round consideration.
Yeah, I think even if I'd be surprised, even if he has a strong year and Cade, completely turns it around and he becomes that 5-star that everybody thought he was going to be coming out of Westlake, right? I'd be surprised if Cade doesn't come back next year. I would really be shocked. That would surprise me quite a bit.
And selfishly, I hope he comes back for a 4th year, because we've talked about. I mean, we're talking about how what the potential of this team has, this 2024 team has. But when you think about the pieces you could potentially be bringing back in 2025, like there's a lot to be excited about, and having a 4th-year quarterback in Cade, and especially if you retain Garrett, if you have a big year and Garrett Riley comes back for one more year, another year or two, like. That team could be really, really damn good.
Could be really good. Could be really good.
You could be bringing back.
You're not scheduled to lose a whole bunch off of this team. Now that's saying a lot. That's saying that you can retain everybody and keep everybody away from the transfer portal and divvy up the NIL to make everybody happy and all that stuff. A lot of stuff goes into that. But as far as the Clemson can return pretty much this whole team outside of a few pieces,
especially on offense. Yeah, I mean, you'll lose. You'll probably. I think. I mean, Walker Parks. I think he technically could come back in 2025 if he wanted to.
Yeah, he'll be gone.
He's planning. I'm pretty sure he's planning on this being his last ride.
Barrett Carter would be gone.
Yeah, Barrett Carter. I think. Yeah, he's pretty safely gone. I think you could. I mean, you could get Wade Woodaz back.
You could get a Wade Woodaz back. I think you could get him back.
Of course, you have the young linebackers. I don't think any of them are going anywhere. Sandy Browns, Jamal Andersons, D. Craytons, Kobe McLeods. So I mean, and then basically you're all
nobody else is even eligible unless they transfer.
Yeah, I mean, Jaden Lucas, like if he has a strong year, like I talked about it, but I think he could. He's a guy that has, right now it would be trending towards coming back. Then the rest of your cornerback room basically is not eligible. Most of your safeties aren't eligible.
You lose some of those older safeties, but again, all those young guys.
Mickens would be gone. Yeah, absolutely, and Mickens and Venables would be gone.
Yeah,
but you would be bringing a ton back. Because we're talking out. The guys that we're talking about as being depth pieces right now, will have had experience by that time.
Sure.
So I mean that 2025 team, looks and obviously the defensive line, we feel really good about that group. So 2025 could be a really special year if you can get Cade back. Get the younger pieces on the offensive line, to get them reps this year. Because like I said, I think you lose Walker Parks, Blake Miller, and is getting a lot of first round hype.
It's a possibility, yeah.
So I'm going to pencil. I'm going to say I'm going to lightly write him as gone.
If if Blake Miller has a really good season this year, he's probably gone.
Yeah, I think if you get Tristan Lay and if you can get Tristan Lay back another year, I think you, which I think you will. Then you have a multi-year starter at left tackle. Of course, you still have Harris Sewell and all the young, and Colin Sadler and all the younger guys, Ian Reed.
You'd be pretty much replacing the right side of your offensive line.
Yeah,
which wouldn't be bad because you talk about a guy like Harris Sewell, he can step right into that right guard position.
Yep.
So,
and and Sadler can slide in at left because if you lose Marcus Tate, Sadler slides in.
Yep.
At
Colin
left guard,
Sadler, yep.
Tristan Leavitt. So, I mean, yeah.
And then you got those new guys you brought in this year. I mean, so we'll see. We'll see. It'll be interesting. Another super chat, $5 super chat from Chase Thompson. Thank you so much, buddy, for stopping in and supporting the show here. Really do appreciate your support. Do you think CV hits the portal after this season? Keeping right along with the quarterback conversation.
I don't like speculating on guys hitting the portal. And I mean, where things stand right now, I mean, CV is the backup quarterback. He's the next in line. If I don't know, he loves Clemson. So like, I don't, but I can't say that he wouldn't if Cade were to come back another year and he's sitting up, like, is he willing to do that? I don't know, but I don't think he knew the situation at quarterback when he committed. Like, he knew he was coming in the year after Cade. So that if Cade was going to be a multi-year starter, more than likely, like that, I'm sure that was a possibility that was he and his family considered. So,
right.
I tend to think no, but I don't like speculating on that.
It's hard to say, man, because you don't know these conversations that these guys are having with, their families or, whoever's in their ear, and, you have no idea how they feel about their personal situation and where they think they are. Are they, are they searching for more playing time? Are they willing to kind of wait their turn and wait it out and be that backup? And who knows? You never know what these guys are thinking. It's easy to say, like, oh yeah, for sure, he's not going to sit another year, but maybe he would.
I mean, and it's not crazy. You have a guy like Arch Manning at Texas who's now, after this year, he's going to have sat for 2 years before he becomes the starter at Texas. Like, right. And he's like the highest rated quarterback of all time. So, like, it's not all about, okay, I need to play. I'm okay with sitting 1 year, but if I have to sit another, I can't. I'm not doing it. Like, right. I don't think that's necessarily the case. But some guys are willing to wait. You have a guy like Carson Beck who was at Georgia. He's been at Georgia since what, 2020? Yeah. He sat behind JT Daniels, Stetson Bennett. Does anybody remember DeJuan Mathis started against Georgia in that 2020 season? Like, he was behind a lot of guys, and he's waited his turn, and he didn't become the full-time starter until his 4th season. So, some guys are okay with waiting. Carson Beck was okay with waiting, and I think CV could be a guy that's okay with waiting his turn. And Carson Beck is a more analogous situation than Arch Manning, because Carson Beck was also a borderline 5-star type kid, but he came in and wasn't necessarily ready to go right away. Had some developing to do. He sat behind some more experienced quarterbacks, at least, and waited his turn, and then became a full-time starter as a senior. Like, right. Maybe that is what CV is okay with doing. So, I don't know. It's a good question, Chase. Like, I'm not upset you asked it, but I don't like speculating on that.
These are conversations that, I'm sure he's having with the coaching staff, and he knows where he stands, and he knows the plan going forward. And, these are conversations that I'm sure they have, every time at the end of every season, right, when people are making these decisions. So we'll see.
All right. Let's see. Where was I? Because those were the super chats. I forgot who I. Oh, Ronald asked a question. Do you guys think there's pressure on Cade to perform at a much higher level this year? Young Pablo at Cisco doesn't think so. I mean, there's definitely pressure for him to perform better. I mean, I don't think there's any question about that. Like, it comes with the territory of being the starting quarterback at Clemson. Like, there was going to be, even if he had a big year last year, there's still going to be pressure on him to, build on that this year. So when you're a starting quarterback at a program like Clemson, like you're expected to get to be better than what you were the year before, whether it was good or bad. So
I think,
there's pressure, and it's a big year
for me. The thing is, it's like he's already felt all the pressure.
Yeah,
I mean, look at the roller coaster ride has been, Cade Klubnik and how he became the starter, and how his first season of starting went. His first season wasn't great, man. Like, 4-4. Backs against the wall. They finish. I think he's felt the pressure. So my worry heading into this season is not the pressure. My worry is that he blocks all that stuff out. Who cares, man? Who cares what we think as fans? That's what he should think. Obviously we always have our opinions, and we're always going to, voice what we think is best for the program, and we're passionate about it, and all of that stuff. But if I'm Cade, man, who cares? Like, block that noise. Like, who cares what the reporters are saying? Who cares what ESPN's saying? Who cares what the fans are saying? Like, lock in on what you got to do, and that's what he needs to focus on. And I heard him talk about it this offseason, about him quieting his mind and trying to find ways to do that this offseason. And that's what he needs to focus on. He don't need to focus on the pressure. Obviously, there's pressure. You're a quarterback at a major college football program. There's pressure. You got all the healthy wide receivers. Your offensive line looks to be, somewhat improved this season. So everybody's going to be looking to Cade to make the next step. And I mean, I think he knows that as best as anybody, but he can't allow that to, dictate how he goes out on that field and operates, so.
There's absolutely pressure. I mean,
I think he's heard enough noise to this point to be able to deal with it.
Yeah.
That would be my guess. But again, I don't know him personally, so.
Yeah.
A lot easier said than done.
Jay asks, are you nervous at all about how Wes Goodman will call defense against high-level offenses? The drive before halftime during FSU comes to mind, where he kind of showed he was still kind of great. I mean, no, I feel like I'm not really. I mean, we've talked about it. I think he's continuing. He continued to grow as a play caller throughout that year, and he played some really high-powered offenses, especially in that second half of the year. Notre Dame was a top 25 offense in terms of production. North Carolina was a top 25 offense in terms of production. Georgia Tech was a top 25 offense in terms of production. And the quality of quarterback that you were facing was extremely high, and that defense performed admirably. Other than some explosive runs, they really shut down, those offenses. So like I'm not really, and even the FSU thing, like that, the defense played it more than well enough to win that game. You allowed 17 points in regulation.
You should have won.
Obviously, you had the scoop and score to make it 24. But the defense gave up 17. Like, against that Florida State offense,
that was pretty good.
And you're at home. Yeah, that was enough for you to win the game. And of course, the things that happened. No, I mean, like, I think there's probably some, I think we still just kind of were spoiled by by Brent Venables, and like but like, defenses are going to have, no matter how talented you are, they're going to have lapses at times. And that was a bad moment in that game from an otherwise good performance. So it's like, I think and when Dabo got in his face about it, he learned from it. He never really did anything like that for the rest of the year. And so I think, that's just part of the and I think he's only going to continue to get better.
It's important to go through things like that, right? Like, you have to go out there and make the mistakes. Like, he's never called defense before, right? Like, he's still learning situation. He's still being put into different situations for the first time, right? So he's going to continue to learn. And I think the only thing that you need to worry about when Wes Goodwin, the only thing that I need to know about is he makes adjustments, right? Like, he is not the guy that's going to sit there and just keep doing the same thing and get his head beat into the ground. Like, he's going to make the adjustments. He's going to try to figure out a way to stop it.
And that was one thing he didn't do as well his first year, for obvious reasons.
Right.
And I think that's why that defense didn't perform to the degree we thought, and they gave up a ton of explosive plays. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, his adjustments this year were, I mean, especially like that Notre Dame game is one of the more impressive that probably his most impressive performance because of what you were missing in that game.
Yeah.
And you had Nate Wiggins didn't play in that game. RJ Mickens didn't play in that game. Jalen Phillips didn't play in that game. You had a ton of true freshmen in the secondary. I think you had I can't remember who didn't. I think one or two players didn't play on the defensive line. Like you were kind of reeling, because you were 4-4 at that point. And
yeah, no, like it was, I mean, the season could have gone a very different way that day.
Right.
Than it ended up going.
And the adjustments were quick. Like because if you remember, Notre Dame and Audric Estime, they broke off some big runs on those first couple of drives. And then I think Audric Estime had like something like 20 rushing yards the rest after the first quarter.
Yeah.
The rest of the game. Like Notre Dame could not run the ball. And they played a lot of man free and dared Notre Dame to beat them passing it. And they could not do it. And West did a lot of good things as far as scheming up pressures, making that talented Notre Dame offensive line, they got their butts kicked because and that I think that's a testament to what West was able to do. Like it was like it's like, oh, you're okay, so you're running on us, okay. And he made a quick adjustment. Like that was one thing he didn't do as well in 2022 was like, okay, he game plans. I mean, we went through game planning all week and like, this is what we're going to do. Right. And he was, especially in like that Wake Forest game where he was just really slow to really stop playing man when E.T. Perry and Donovan Green and those and Sam Hartman were cutting you apart. And all the pass interference, like guys were not being able, like Toriano Pride is playing in his first real action. Nate Wiggins is playing in his first real action. Fred Davis has been there in a while, but he had hardly played because he couldn't stay out of trouble. Like you already had injuries in the secondary, and then so like that change from 2022 to 2023 was like stark in my opinion. It was, and I think that's a indicator that Wes is only going to continue to get better.
Right. I think it shows his ability as a coach to adapt and to play to his strengths. And I think as a defensive coordinator, those are the biggest things that you can have. And I think Wes Goodwin has it in spades. So I got no questions about him. I got no questions about Wes Goodwin. Is he always going to go out there and call the perfect game? No. But you've seen the growth from year 1 to year 2, and I expect growth from year 2 to year 3. I expect Wes Goodwin to continue to get better. He's a nerd for the game. He's a guy that, he's all about the X's and O's. He's all about scheming and getting his defense in the best positions possible. So I got no reason to think that, he's not going to continue to grow. And things like what happened in the FSU game, best believe he's gone back and scouted that and figured out, where he went wrong, right? So sometimes you got to go through things like that in order to grow as a coach and a play caller. And, that was just one of Wes Goodwin's growing moments.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Already did the BYOG. Oh, John had another BYOG or sell for us. He says, this one's interesting. He said, Clemson will not face DJ and Doak this year. I'm going to sell. I'm going to sell because
there's a lot of talk about this.
I know, but I think because it's too early in the season for me to feel like they would just abandon DJ quickly. Like it would take some really, like he'd have to put up some stinkers, man. Like, let me pull up Florida State schedule real quick. I know they open up with Georgia Tech, but my mind is fuzzy.
In Dublin, right?
And that game could be very
interesting. If they go out there and get, smacked by Georgia Tech, hey.
I even then I feel like they wouldn't just abandon it because they obviously they brought him in for a reason. Like I feel like they would try to make it work and see what he does in the net. But it would obviously put him on a very short leash from the get go if they were to lose, especially if they lose to Georgia Tech and he plays awful. But okay, so yeah, they open in Dublin, Ireland. I don't know why they do.
Why are we playing in Dublin, Ireland?
I don't know, man. It'll be football to watch in week 0. It'll be an interesting game, so I guess I can't complain too much. But
I mean, I'm not going to complain because football's back, but like, we got no business playing college football games in Ireland, dude.
Yeah,
like, what are we doing?
I don't know, man. But yeah, they open in Dublin against Georgia Tech. Then they play on. Is that right? They play on a Monday night, so they go a full 9 days before they play again. Play on a Monday night at home against Boston College. First year under Bill O'Brien. That could be. DJ hasn't really played well against Boston College when he's played them, but obviously new coaching staff. They play at home against Memphis. Now this one's interesting because Memphis is one of the popular G5 picks to make the college football playoff, and I'm interested to kind of see what Florida State's home field advantage looks like because Doak Campbell is going under renovations. I think they're only going to be seating like 50,000 people.
Yeah, 55,000 people, I think.
Yeah,
max capacity.
So Doak is not going to be the Doak that we know,
right?
More than likely, like that's a very significant cut in terms of crowd size. I'm interested in that. Especially because Clemson has to go there, of course. But
you're cutting like 30,000 people out of the stands this year.
I think they're like I think Doak normally holds like 78,000, close to 80,000. So like that's
80,000 with standing room.
Yeah, so, that's significant, man.
So yeah, you're cutting 25,000 people.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of people.
That's about how big. Like, imagine if you like cut that many people out of. I mean, they hold about the same. Like Clemson is like 81,000, so it's not that much different. So like, imagine if you cut like 30,000 people out of the stands
you basically just cut the top deck off.
Yeah. Essentially, yeah. So like these home games, like they get, other than the Georgia Tech game, they get these games at home, which is also interesting. They don't hit the road again because they play at Memphis, at home against Memphis. Then they play at home against Cal. That one might be interesting. I don't know how to feel about Cal this year. I like Jaden Ott is talented running back, but I'm not sure. Then they go to SMU before they play Clemson at home. And they do not have a bye week. Yes, they do, technically. They don't play that. After Boston College, they have a bye week. Then they play at home against Memphis. So it's deeper into the schedule than I thought. That's what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games of DJ.
I mean, it's possible.
I'm still going to sell.
Not the starting quarterback. Yeah. But I mean that would mean that freshman is ready.
Yeah.
Right.
They say I think Brock Glenn is going to. From what I've been told, Brock Glenn is the guy if DJ goes down. And he got some run last year. Didn't play particularly well, but he was a true freshman. Obviously, because Jordan Travis went down, and then Tate Rodemaker, their backup, went down, and then Brock Glenn had to play that ACC championship game. But they say, he was a talented recruit coming out. Like that could be, like it could happen. I don't want to say it can't happen, but I'm still gonna sell. I feel like they just it would take them losing. It would take them losing like multiple games. I think even one bad loss wouldn't be enough to get like like DJ would have to play poorly and they lose like 2 games.
And their schedule's not crazy difficult up to that point. So
yeah.
I would think
they get everything at home. Besides that,
DJ's probably still around, but I mean, again, there's a world where DJ definitely gets benched. I could definitely see that happening. Like, no doubt about it. I could see that happening.
Yeah, that okay. So yeah, that's a less difficult. So that's a more difficult sell than
I would,
I
yeah,
initially thought.
I would say sell, but I don't feel great about it.
Yeah.
I don't
If
feel
he
good.
like it, if it does, and it's not just because like, oh man, DJ, he's played terrible in the past, he's going to play terrible again, like because he had good performances last year at Oregon State, like, but I think it's more of the team around. Like, I'm not convinced that Florida State's receivers are all that special, and that's one thing that it's not just me. Like that's a question that internally that they have. They
Yeah,
really
that's a
don't know what they
legitimate.
have.
Yeah, that's a legitimate question for them.
Yeah, I mean, like if Clemson was bringing back a wide receiver room of Malik Benson, Ja'Kai Douglas, Poitier, the tight end, like Lawrence Toafili, like those are like there's some good weapons there, but none of like they're not overly special, and they didn't really like watching their spring game. It didn't inspire a lot of confidence either, which
Right.
is also, I mean, which isn't necessarily fair. I can't because I can only go by what what we saw, but like I don't know, I don't know how to feel about that. Like I don't I think people are giving Florida State the benefit of the doubt offensively because Mike Norvell is a good play caller.
Yeah, no.
He's done like he's had good offenses, pretty consistently. But I just as far as Florida State, like people talk like them being, I don't understand why they're the clear cut favorite to win the ACC.
I don't understand either. And here's the other thing is like
Offensive line should be good though.
you
I'll give
can't
them that.
sit here and pretend like you're going to believe that somehow Mike Norvell is going to turn DJ into some, difference maker at the quarterback position. That's not happening, dude. It's not happening. Like DJ's going to be a similar version of what he was at Clemson and what he was at Oregon State, which is pretty much the same quarterback.
Yeah, I don't expect some
stats that were a little bit different.
Like unless Florida State has some big time weapon that really steps up, like they're going to need DJ like in order to win some of the like the games where they're not just where they can't easily score a bunch of points, like, and the defense can't get as many stops because I think their defense is still going to be really good. Like DJ's not going to elevate those receivers. I don't think. Like I don't think he hasn't been able to do that at any point in his career as far as elevating the weapons he has. So it's going to take something more. Like on paper DJ, that group doesn't scare me all that much.
DJ would have to play like he's never played before. That version that we've seen of him to this date in college. And I'm not bagging on the guy. Like I don't dislike DJ. Like I think he's a good kid, right? Like I think he's got a good heart, and he's a decent quarterback, right? But he is what he is. Like I don't think you're going to, like, for FSU fans, like you can't expect him to go out there and be, anything other than really what he's been his last two stops. He may get a little bit of improvement because of Mike Norvell and his ability to, scheme things and play to player strengths and things like that. I'm not saying that's out of the realm of possibility, but to think that he's just going to be a completely different quarterback, I think you're setting yourself up for failure if you think that. And I'm not saying FSU's fans think that. I don't know what they think. At this point, they got to roll with what they got. But to think that DJ is going to go out there and elevate the guys that you have on the perimeter, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I feel like if Clemson was the one bringing those weapons back, like people would not be like Clemson wouldn't even be the second odds favorite to win the ACC. I don't think.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it hinges on that game last year, right? That Clemson lost to FSU, a game that they should have won. They lost, and that changes the narrative a lot. And Florida State ends up going undefeated and going to the ACC championship and win, and that changes the narrative. We all know football is about narratives. It's about small margins, right? We see it all the time, and something as small as that can change an entire perspective. And I think that's part of it that plays into it is they saw FSU go in there and beat Clemson at home and go on to win the conference, and that gives them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt. And I think that's what you're probably seeing.
Yeah, but that's exactly it. And you couple that with the, Clemson doesn't use the transfer portal. That's all. Like whenever you hear when you hear like the national people talk about the ACC and that how that race is shaping out, every time they talk about Clemson, that's always the first thing that comes up. Not about the team that they bring back and the actual, the fact they played more freshmen than anybody else in the country last year. They lost 3 one-score games that, quite frankly, they should have won. And like you put all of that together, you ignore all that because Dabo didn't take a transfer, but instead of looking at the roster you brought back, and that's kind of a frustration that you and I have both had, but that's just kind of the reality of the way things are nowadays. But
yeah, and it's just kind of how it goes, and that'll be the narrative around Clemson until they go change it out on the field.
Yeah,
the only people that can change the narrative around Clemson are the guys in that locker room and that coaching staff. That is it, and they know it. Dabo's going to continue to get beat up about the transfer portal. Clemson's going to continue to get beat up about NIL. All that stuff's going to continue to be said until they prove it out on the field and they go win something. And until then, the same narratives are always going to be there. We know how this works. Dabo is very polarizing when he says things, even when he says things that are eerily similar to what other coaches are saying across the country. It gets taken certain ways when it's Dabo for whatever reason. Love it or hate it, think it's annoying, think it's fair, think it's unfair. Doesn't really matter. The narratives are going to be there, and the only way to dispel them is get out on that field and prove it. So that's Absolutely. What they got to do this season. They got to turn it around. They got to get it headed back in the right direction. And I think we're at a decent point to hope that the tide starts shifting back in our direction.
Absolutely. All right. Did I star anything else, or did we hit we hit the end of the star? Let me go see what else y'all are talking about. People talking about the schedule. Chase says this is by far Clemson's worst schedule in a few years. I don't know if I agree with that necessarily. I think the schedule, I think it's difficult, but not necessarily because in totality. But I don't think it's difficult in totality, but I think because it's so front loaded.
Yeah, it's kind of
what makes it, and with just the questions you have offensively, like I think that makes it makes it more pertinent that you get off to a hot start. Like you don't really have. I mean, obviously you don't have any.
There ain't no runway.
There's no runway
into the 2024 season.
Right. So you open with the toughest team on your schedule. So it's like, and then you get App State at home, which is, as far as home Group of 5 cupcakes is not an ideal opponent. Then, NC State at home, it's NC State who you have regularly beat at home for the past 2 decades, but they feel really good about their team coming back, and the addition of Grayson Hall. That's not a pushover game. Two of your first 3 games are all extreme, not extremely difficult. The first one is extremely difficult, and then the other 2 are not. There's no real breathing room to kind of now we can kind of test. We saw what did and didn't work against Georgia. Whether you win or lose, and then you have a cupcake to really App State is. If you sleepwalk into that game, you could find yourself. You could find yourself down 14-10 at halftime.
Go ask North Carolina.
Yeah,
they always seem to struggle with that. I don't even know why App State. I don't even know why North Carolina.
They somehow always find a way to win, though.
They always find a way to win, but they don't make it pretty, man. I don't know why North Carolina schedules App State no more. If I was North Carolina, I'd be like, "Nah, we're good. We ain't playing y'all no more. Y'all play around too much." But yeah, to your point, there's no cupcake game, right? There's no reprieve there to kind of settle in after that Georgia game and be like, all right, this worked, this didn't work, this is what we need to work on. This is, No, man, you roll right into App State, and that team will come up and beat you. They don't care. They do not care. It's not a team to play around with. And then, you talk about NC State and Grayson McCall and all the moves they've made throughout the offseason, and that freaking crazy wide receiver they got that ate us up last year.
Yep. Concepcion. Yeah.
Concepcion. Oh my goodness. I was about sick of hearing his name by the end of that game.
Yeah. He's talented, man.
But again, it's you roll right into that, and then you got Sanford, which is, a game you should definitely win, no doubt about it. And then you roll right into Florida State. So,
is it crazy to say that Stanford will be your easiest game in that stretch?
Probably. As crazy as it is, yeah.
Having a group of
game of the season will probably be their easiest game to that point.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
It's Clemson's got their work cut out for them early and often in the schedule. So, you don't really have a runway into the 2024 season. It's kind of, you got to hit the ground running and ready to be basically playing playoff football. I mean, you're going to play Georgia week 1. That's a playoff game right there. I mean, if you lose it, your season's not over. I'm not saying oh, well, if Clemson can't beat Georgia, let's go ahead and pack it in for the rest of the season. Right? I'm not saying that at all. But that's a playoff game. That's a playoff team that you're playing right there. So you're gonna have to be ready, and we're gonna find out pretty quickly if this offense is turned any sort of corner.
Absolutely. And John makes a great point. Ranked teams mean nothing before the first snap. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Preseason, the teams that we could get to that Florida State game and they completely implode and it's not as daunting of a game. You never know. You could get to, and then on the other hand, Virginia Tech, who's not ranked, you could get there and they're undefeated, especially when you look at their schedule. You just don't know until the game is actually played. But on paper, it's a front-loaded schedule that's pretty manageable after you play Florida State. So, it's not in totality. It's not just in terms of the teams that are on it. It's not difficult, but where the games are placed makes it more tricky. You don't have a lot of room to breathe there.
Yeah.
Even with the 2 bye weeks that everybody gets.
Yeah, because if you're Clemson and you have a few hiccups, you can play yourself into a really unfortunate hole early on in the season. Yeah. And you can be looking pretty dire before the month of October if you mess around. So.
All right. Ronald asked this Dabo sorry, I'm having a stroke. The Dabo experiment. This is the Dabo experiment's make or break year. If we can't get into a 12-team playoff, something is wrong. The experiment didn't work, and we need to hit transfer portal hard next year. Do you agree? Well, I think we probably need more context in terms of how the season played out.
Right.
I can't say that it's. I do think this team should expect to make the 12-team playoff. I think this team has has that ability. It should be able to. It very much depends on why. Because what if it's the offense played really good and then the defense had a drop? I don't expect that, but what if that is the case? Did we have injuries? There's a lot of things to consider there. Did things just kind of go off the rails from a health standpoint? I probably need more context, but I do think that if this team just flat out underperforms, I can't say the experiment is wrong but it definitely Clemson would need to reconsider kind of what they're doing. from a talent acquisition standpoint, and they definitely would need to hit the transfer portal. Hard kind of depends on your definition of hard, but because I still think this roster is extremely talented. But yeah, I would need more. I probably need more information in this scenario because there's a lot of reasons why, the season doesn't go the way we want if that are outside of the control of
I think
bad luck. I don't know.
There's a world where the season goes in a way where Ronald may have a point, right? Where we may need to reevaluate some things about how the football program is operating and, is this sustainable in the current landscape of college football, right? There's a world where the season ends up that way, right? There's also a world where, the season plays out and we kind of turn it around on offense and we get it going a little bit and end up in the 12-team playoff and, it turns out to be a pretty good season, right? So both of those things I think are within the realm of possibility. But again, like to your point, Jordan, I would have to see, what transpired over the season. Why did we end up not making the 12-team playoff? What happened? What were our shortcomings that season? But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that the philosophy may need to be tweaked at Clemson. And I don't think Dabo's completely, out on that as well either. I really don't believe that. I think Dabo will continue to make moves to try to get Clemson back to where they need to be. You've seen him do it at the coaching staff. And I think if he truly believed that the transfer portal was the way, then that's what he would be doing. So, I think that's a hypothetical that, hopefully we're not talking about at the end of the season because that means our season didn't go quite well. And we're probably not in a place where we want to be. But it's definitely a conversation that could happen come season's end for sure.
Absolutely. John with we'll hit one or two more and then we'll get on out of here. John with another BYOG or sell. He says this year Brenning Stool matches Leggett's 2016. That's about 250 yards more than last year. So I went ahead and looked up his 2016 season just so I could give the exact stats. And so in 15 games he played, he had 46 catches, 736 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns. So that's roughly in 15 games. That's roughly under 50 yards a game, right under 50 yards a game. So like if depends on how many games Clemson plays, I think is kind of the question here. Because I definitely think he can get to that number, but it depends on how much they play. So I'm going to say by BYOG. I think I think Jake Brenning Stool can get to over 50 yards a game. Like, and I'm going to kind of do it from a per game standpoint. Just
the average,
because sample size does matter. And Jordan Leggett did play 15 games. Now if Clemson plays 15 games, that means he made the college.
Yeah, I don't know that he gets to 700, but I can buy that he could end up averaging 50 yards a game. I can buy that.
So I'm going to say and I think the touchdown total, especially, he can get to 7 touchdowns. Yeah, I don't even think
better be a weapon down there. That better be your go-to.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think he's going to be a big time weapon in the red zone. Like I think he'll have. He could potentially lead the team in receiving touchdowns if certain things go a certain way. But yeah, I'll BYOG. I think he can. That's certainly attainable, especially if they make a real concerted effort to get him the ball, because he is a weapon. Chase talking about, y'all see that defender slap the offensive lineman in the head with the helmet. He's talking about the App State player in a practice. Yeah, so it was crazy. Like I don't know who it was, but it was leaked footage of a App State practice, and dude pulled the offensive lineman's helmet off and hit him with it. Like they got in a scuffle during a.
So he ripped the dude's helmet off and then hit him with his own helmet?
Yeah.
That's brutal. Man. All right.
I don't know, man.
I don't even know what to say about that. That's disrespectful.
So that's what we have to look forward to when they come to town.
Oh, God.
It's been a while. All right.
Crazy people from Boone.
They are crazy, but great college town.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I was
great atmosphere.
I was just I was up there last December. I watched it. I went to their game against Auburn when they upset Auburn in basketball. That was a lot of fun. Great town. All right. Anything else strike my eye? Dogs rolling. Oh, hold on. I want to give some attention to the Georgia fan. Dogs rolling loud. He says, but to answer your question, we have to go to. I'm probably reading this out of context, but we have to go to Bama, Texas, and Ole Miss. Yeah, Georgia has a tough schedule. Like this is the toughest schedule I've seen Georgia play in quite some time.
Yeah, that's
yeah, like we talked about, like they could. I mean, they could drop
Bama, Texas, and Ole Miss.
Yeah,
I mean, all the moves Ole Miss has made this offseason, they look to be, trying to make some noise in the SEC. Obviously, Texas.
Texas is Texas, and they have a really good. They lost a lot. Like I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. Like it's like I still think Georgia is better than individually than.
Oh yeah, no.
All three of these teams, but just the totality of playing those teams, playing that schedule from week to week
on the road,
lose a game or two.
Yeah, you could definitely see them, dropping a game or two.
But the good thing is they're Georgia, and with the 12-team playoff, like Georgia can eat a couple losses and be fine.
The benefit for them is
if they go 10-2, they're safely in. Like even if they don't make Atlanta get to Atlanta,
10 times out of 10, they walk out there with the most talented roster on the field. So
yeah,
they'll be okay. Nobody feels bad for them.
Yeah, I don't. I certainly don't.
Nobody feels bad for them. They'll be all right.
So, and we'll find out. We'll get to see what they're made of. Pretty, coming up pretty soon. So
Yes, we will.
Be a lot of fun.
Look forward to it. It's gonna be fun.
All right, James Thompson. Oh, are the Eagles playing tonight?
Shipley scored a touchdown?
Apparently, he said touchdown, unless that's unrelated. Did Will Shipley score a touchdown?
Well, let's look it up before we leave.
That'd be cool. He did. Oh, wait, no. Nate Wiggins had a play. Who was that on? I can't tell what receiver that was, but he had Nate had a really nice pass breakup. Yeah, the Eagles are playing. I guess Shipley did score a touchdown.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh,
shout out Will Shipley. Good for him.
Oh, yep, he got a passing touchdown in the red zone. They ran a little bootleg and leaked him out of the backfield.
There you go.
Nice. That's cool. Tigers doing big things in the league. Love it. And that's right. And the Eagles have Trotter too. So hopefully we'll get to see him make a play or two. All right. I think that's a good place to close it out.
Yeah, that's we'll go ahead and end it here. Got 37 people in the live chat right now. If you have not already, on your way out, please hit that like button for us. That'd be much appreciated. Thank you for our super chats tonight. Give them another shout out real quick before we get out of here. Chase Thompson, thank you so much. Hold on.
Praveen. I want to say it's Praveen, but I don't want to get it wrong.
I think it's Praveen. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you for the $5.
Thank you for the $5 super chat, Praveen. Appreciate that. Thank you guys for showing up tonight. It's been another all-in show here in the books. Fall camp is in full swing. Hey, next couple weeks, guys, we're gonna have some special guests coming on. I think next week will be our first episode with a couple special guests that are going to come on and help us break down the Tiger season and talk about what's to come for the 2024 season and how we kind of see everything playing out. So big show coming up next week. Make sure your guys are here. Make sure you're telling everybody about it. We're going to have a couple special guests on to kind of help us talk about our Tigers, and you won't want to miss it, I guarantee you. And then the week following that, we'll be breaking down some Georgia stuff, and we'll have a Georgia YouTuber on here as well to help us do that. So stay tuned for that as well. That'll be a big one for us in the future. So a couple big shows coming for you guys in the next coming weeks. So stay tuned. 5:30 right here every Friday. Me and Jordan will be here for the All In Show. But until then, I'm Tiger Paul Craven. He's Jordan Bowman. Go Tigers.
Later, y'all.